Scoffton is a wonderfully gross game. No, not bombastic and over the top. No, this is gross in the best sort of way, when something is just a little too real. You and your friends are going to be hitting up the Scoffton buffet and consuming some really questionable confections and all sorts of other eerie entrees, trying to get the most bang for your buck. After all, everyone loves a good value. Now, before we dive into the preview, I want to remind you that this is a prototype pre-production copy of the game, and everything as far as the components and even the rules are subject to change. So with that said, let's dive into a heaping helping of Scoffton. Scoffton is a worker placement game where you are placing workers both in the restaurant floor and on your personal belly board, featuring your table and your increasingly volatile tummy. As you lay claim to entrees on the dining floor, they then move to your table, they get eaten, enter your belly, and once you fill up a section of your tummy, you score points for its contents. First person with a completely full stomach ends the game, and final score is determined. There's a cool circular nature to the three phases of every round of Scoffton, kind of like the waves of food that you're assaulting your poor diners with. The first phase has players alternating placing their diners, aka workers, all across their belly boards and the restaurant floor. There's all kinds of things you can interact with, but if you place one of your workers in front of a food item, you take the top one of those food items, claiming it to your worker. And you continue doing this on all the different spots, but you don't get to activate any of them yet. No, because that brings us to the second phase, where you draw a management card. Management cards have global effects, kind of like Earl, the bread waiter here, who helpfully delivers bread, which is really kind of a low value option to every player's table. And this may mess with a lot of people because you have precious little space on your table for additional food. Or it may be that that bread was exactly what you needed, because bread and ice cream can be added to other types of food items in order to increase their value. I mean, bread tastes pretty good with soup. There could be other effects that happen, like food fights causing spills and losses of food to restaurant managers who actually try to do the right thing and clean up the restaurant. There's a lot of different effects here, but none of them are going to be too disruptive in the game. Just creates a nice little flow for the turn. Then it's time to activate your assigned workers. Similar to assigning them, players alternate choosing one of their workers to resolve the action of the location they're at, like bringing your food to the table, eating, using the restroom, which is conveniently located through the kitchen, to cash in partially full sections of your stomach, to making a complaint at reception in order to become the first player next round, or force the restaurant staff to clean up. What I really love about this system is it allows you to anticipate certain sequences of events in your turn. Like, I may assign a worker to my table with the intention to eat food that's not even there yet, because I can first activate another diner who has some sweet, albeit actually mediocre, lobster tail being brought over, which then I can activate my dude at the table to mow down and put that into my belly. There's actually a bunch of really clever intricacies that you can play around with within this assign, management, activate system. One of the most important things to consider each round is what you can nick from the Lost and Found. These cards are one-time use spots that you can place a diner on, then activate as normal, which lets you subvert the normal rules of the game. Need to grab something off of someone else's table? Use the Lazy Susan. Looking to grab 2 dishes at once? Good thing you got a lunchbox. Worries about the health contents of the prawns out on display? Looks like someone left behind a microbe detection kit. Speaking of which, when I read through the rules of this game, I actually laughed aloud several times, which speaks to how legitimately funny I find it, but never so much so as when I read about the possibility of a poisoned prawn. This little guy here is emblematic of the whole shtick that this game is going for, but like everything else in Scoffton, it comes to life through interesting and albeit quite discomforting mechanics. As you consume certain items, new items on the buffet are revealed, and few are so delicious or worth so many points as the prawn. But one prawn in the game has a deadly secret, which is only revealed upon completing a stomach section or emptying the contents of your bowels in the restroom. If it turns out that you had a poison prawn, you either lose all prawns in that section of your stomach or half of the contents if there were no other prawns. In the case of the restroom action, a poison prawn makes it so that stomach section scores no points for flushing it out. I mean, there's nothing that says that you actually have to eat the prawns, but then again, there's only one poison prawn token in the game, so go for it. You're probably fine. For the overall simple structure of the game, there are some really cool dynamic elements that put the pressure on all players and make the flow of the game a bit different every time. First off, you have your menus laid out at the beginning of the game. These are suggested combinations of dishes that players can fill into each stomach section in order to claim bonus points. Because the bonuses decrease as players make claim to these tokens, it creates a sort of desperate race in order to fill your bellies with these wonderful sounding menu options, such as the Roadhouse Classics Beige Plate. Additionally, if someone lays claim to the top item of a buffet stack and reveals an item that you super want to mow down on, but you can't get in there because the worker's spot is closed off for the turn, well, you can always use your sneeze token, placing your worker on top of it, thereby sneezing on the dish and making it only claimable by you. After all, they're your own germs. It's not like they can hurt you, right? Similarly, several effects through the management cards or through the lost and found cards, like the ketchup bottle here, place spill tokens on the board at different worker placement locations, which make it so that they cannot be accessed until they are cleaned up. Looks like no one can get their precious soft serve ice cream until management does something about it, which probably isn't going to happen until someone places a worker at the reception desk to make a complaint. On top of all I could say about this being a quick and clever game, never have I seen a game so magnificently focused on its seemingly mundane theme, and I love it. Everything is played perfectly straight here, and the absurdity of the humor works because we've all seen restaurants where you had to question how many times the food has been sneezed on, where the booth cushions were held together by tape, and where you knew the increasing number of spills were only going to get dealt with after a complaint to management that you are probably not going to bother making. From the artwork and the color palette to the food selection and a hilarity of things like a special section of the stomach reserved for desserts, this game has aesthetic in spades. It is absurd, wry, and self-deprecating, and most importantly, the mechanics are deeply entrenched in the theme. I really dig the vibe of this game. And yeah, my absolute favorite thing is how it nails the ultra dry humor of a restaurant that's been operating the exact same way without a single repair since 1981. But also, I like what the game mechanically offers. The simple yet fascinating action system that kind of turns traditional worker placement games on its head. The cyclical nature as you're moving these food items from the restaurant floor over to the table into the belly, shuffling back into the kitchen only to be served back out as people are just tucking into this food, to the dynamic changes from game to game caused by these super disgusting and perfectly colored spill tokens covering up different spaces, to the different menu cards offering different races to sorts of different foods. This is a cool game with lots to play around with. But by no means is this a heavy-duty or complicated game. It has a certain mechanical panache to it that makes it both intuitive and intricate, and certainly more approachable than those questionable prawns that have been sitting around. So if you are hungry for some good hometown worker placement dining and you don't have too high of standards about the food selections being offered, then you should stop by Australia's own Scoffton on Kickstarter soon. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald. If you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcasts, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.